The movie begins with a man named Nick, who was a police officer, walking along with his friend Jimmy. Nick told Jimmy that he had failed the detective exam again. Hearing that, Jimmy was surprised. Nick told him that the next test was after 3 months, and until then, he had to continue lying to his wife, Audrey. Nick also requested Jimmy to not tell his wife anything about the exam. Nick's wife, Audrey, was a hairdresser. She loved Nicholas but was bored with their lifestyle. Nick received a message from Audrey to bring something home, so after shopping, he went with his wife to meet Jimmy and his wife at a restaurant that night. It was their 15th wedding anniversary. Nick was hiding the truth about failing the detective exam again from his wife, and Jimmy's wife knew about it. She tried to mock Nicholas by calling him a detective in front of Audrey. To shut her up, Nicholas fulfilled her demand for more drinks. When they got back home, Audrey began to argue with Nick, reminding him that he had promised to take her on a trip to Europe. It had been 15 years since they were married, and he still had not taken her. Nick told her that he had already planned a surprise and was taking her on a honeymoon to Europe. On the day of the trip, both of them got ready, went to the airport, and boarded the plane. Nicholas fell asleep soon after. Audrey, seeing him sleeping, got angry, got up, and went into the food cabin, where she began to release her frustration on the food. A man named Charles was watching her and asked whether she was going to Europe. Audrey told Charles that she was going on a honeymoon with her husband, even though it had already been 15 years since they were married. Charles told Audrey that his fiancée had betrayed him and married his uncle, Malcolm Quince. Hearing that name, Audrey was shocked because Malcolm was a well-known billionaire. Charles invited Audrey to his uncle's yacht party and told her that he was planning to ruin it. Meanwhile, Nicholas also woke up and went into the food cabin, where he saw Charles talking to his wife. He got jealous and interrupted them. Charles then invited both of them to his uncle's yacht party. Nicholas declined, but Audrey convinced him by saying it was a high-class party and would be better than their original trip. Since Nicholas was a thrifty man, he decided they would go, that way they could save some money. Afterward, the airplane landed in Spain and both of them sat in Charles's car and went to the seaside where a beautiful, high-class yacht was docked. There they met Charles's ex-fiancée Susie and Malcolm's son, Toby. Then Nicholas and Audrey went into a room on the yacht to freshen up, where Audrey told Nicholas that Susie was a 23-year-old girl marrying an old man for his money. After some time, they came out and began to look around. Audrey noticed a beautiful actress, Grace, who was lying on a seat. Both of them talked with Grace and praised her. Seeing her beauty, Audrey got jealous and asked how someone could be so beautiful. Hearing that, Charles said there was nothing beautiful about her because everything on her face was fake and the result of surgery. After that, Colonel Ulenga, who was a good friend of Malcolm, entered the party along with his bodyguard, Sergei. The Maharaj of Mumbai, Vikram, was also there to attend the party. Soon after, the yacht began to move and the party officially started. Vikram introduced a man named Carlos to the others, telling them that he was a car racer and was going to enter a Grand Prix race. The yacht had entered the Mediterranean Sea when an elderly man, Malcolm, arrived with his new young wife, Susie. He then began to address everyone, accusing them of being leeches who were only there to feed off his lifetime earnings. Therefore, he declared that he would transfer all his wealth to his bride, Susie, and cut the rest of them off. Hearing this, everyone, including his son Toby, was shocked. Grace left the party in anger. Malcolm began to sign the property papers, but suddenly, the lights went out and a gunshot was heard. When the lights came back on, a knife was found stabbed into Malcolm's neck, and he was lying dead on the floor. Everyone was stunned to see him lying there. They looked around and noticed Colonel Ulenga holding a gun, which made him look suspicious. Colonel Ulenga told the others that, although he was blind in one eye, he could clearly see that Malcolm had died from a stab wound to the heart, not from a gunshot. Saying this, he took the knife out of Malcolm's chest and then put it back. Audrey told the others that her husband Nicholas was a detective and that they should listen to him. Nick instructed everyone to go to their rooms and told them that the crime scene had to be sealed until they reached Monaco. After that, everyone went to their rooms and the area was closed off. Audrey and Nicholas returned to their room and took a shrimp tray with sauce to eat. While eating, they discussed the murder. Audrey told Nick that there must have been two people involved, one who turned off the lights and another who stabbed Malcolm. They later went to sleep. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, they heard a gunshot. Everyone rushed outside to see what had happened. They found that Toby had shot himself in the head, and a note was lying on the table. Nicholas told them to seal that crime scene too, and they closed the door and went back. When the yacht reached the shore, the police had already arrived. Detective Delacroix told them that he would call everyone one by one for questioning and ask them to explain what had happened on the yacht. Everyone told different versions of the story. Detective Delacroix asked Colonel Ulenga whether anyone had touched Malcolm's dead body. Although Ulenga remembered that he had taken the knife out of Malcolm's chest to prove he had not killed him, he did not tell the detective about it and claimed that nobody had touched the body. Then Detective Dela asked everyone whether they had found anything unusual or someone acting suspicious. Everyone pointed toward the total strangers, the American couple, Audrey and Nicholas. He called both of them over and showed them the suicide note that had been left on Toby's table before his death. The note said that he had killed his father. Audrey tried to convince the detective that someone might be framing Toby as the murderer, The detective told them that if that were true, then the only suspects would be them, because everyone at the party had known each other for a very long time, only they were strangers. Hearing that, Audrey told the detective that since they were complete strangers, they could not benefit from Malcolm's death. Detective Della told them that they might have been paid to kill Malcolm, and then looked at Nicholas and said he knew he was a police sergeant in New York. The detective told them that he would make sure to prove them guilty, and added that they could not leave for America until the murderer was found. The next day, both Nicholas and Audrey went to the Grand Prix. Audrey's full attention was on solving the case and proving their innocence. The reason for the murder could be money, love, or vengeance. So they decided to talk to everyone to see if they could gather any information. Audrey went to speak with the Colonel and Sergei, while Nicholas went to talk to Vikram, who was sitting on a sofa. While speaking with Vikram, Nicholas came to know that Colonel Ulenga's father used to participate in car races for Malcolm and had died in a racing accident. Therefore, Nicholas thought Colonel Ulenga might have had a reason to kill Malcolm. After talking to everyone, they went back to the hotel and began discussing the matter. Audrey believed the most suspicious person was Susie, because no one was blaming her, and often the least suspected person turns out to be the murderer. Nick told Audrey that he also suspected Charles, but Audrey began to argue with Nicholas, saying he was just jealous of Charles. Suddenly, an envelope slipped under their room door. On it, there was a note asking them to come to room 802. Both of them thought it might be a trap, so Nicholas took a lamp, and together they headed to room 802. Sergei came from behind, pointing a gun at them, and told them to sit. Then he told them about the Colonel, that he was the one who once saved Malcolm from a bomb attack, but in doing so he had fallen into a coma for a long time. During that time, Malcolm had married the Colonel's fiancée, and both of them had a baby boy who later died. Sergei told them that one day the Colonel asked him how he could kill Malcolm. Sergei advised that if he really wanted to do it, he should choose a crowded place to create confusion and mislead others. Suddenly they heard a noise. Sergei told them to hide inside the cupboard because their lives were in danger. After some time, Audrey and Nicholas came out of the cupboard only to find Sergei lying dead on the ground. They decided to escape through the window and re-entered their own room. On their way, they saw the Colonel brushing his teeth in his room. The next day, they went to the bar and discussed the situation. Nicholas told Audrey that Sergei might have been ready to reveal everything, but someone must have killed him to stop him. However, the Colonel could not have killed Sergei since they saw him in his room, brushing. Suddenly, a live news broadcast appeared on the television, announcing that the bodyguard had been murdered, and the main suspects were Nicholas and Audrey. Detective Della declared that orders had been issued to arrest them wherever they were found. Since they could not understand Spanish, they asked the waiter to translate it. The waiter confirmed that arrest orders had indeed been issued. Because of the news, the truth about Nicholas was also revealed, that he was not really a detective. Hearing this, Audrey became upset, argued with Nicholas, and stormed out in anger. Charles approached her and told her that she had been trapped in that situation because of him, and he would now take responsibility and help her get out of it. Nicholas watched them from a distance, looking heartbroken. Charles took Audrey in his car to Italy, where the old will of Malcolm was going to be announced, since his new will had not been signed. Charles left Audrey in the car and went inside. Audrey, suspicious, followed him and entered a library. There, she ran into Nicholas, who had been chasing Susie. They both mistakenly assumed that Susie and Audrey had planned to meet and were plotting something. Suddenly, someone started shooting at them. They dodged the bullets and ran outside, spotting Susie trying to hide in the crowd. They also met the car racer Carlos, and the three of them began searching for Susie. Unexpectedly, Susie came from behind and pointed a gun at them, but just then, a dart flew and struck her in the neck. They turned and saw a masked man wearing a black cloak. Nicholas and Carlos began chasing him. Audrey threw a plate that hit the man's mask, breaking it partially, but the masked man grabbed a scooter and sped away. Audrey, holding Susie, who was now dead, realized someone had already recorded a video of Susie's death, a video in which both Audrey and Nicholas were clearly visible. The detective arrived and told his officers that they had now found enough evidence to prove that Audrey and Nicholas were the murderers. Then, Audrey and Nick went to Quince's villa because they believed that Charles was behind the murders. But when they arrived there, pointing their gun, they saw that Charles was already dead. Someone had poisoned him. Now both of them were frightened because the last suspect had already died, and they did not know what to do. Nicholas told Audrey that they should surrender to the police because it was better than being shot while on the run. But Audrey told him that they could not lose hope and that they should solve the case. So both of them got ready and went to the room where everyone from the yacht party who was still alive was sitting. Nick confidently told them that they had solved the case and knew who the murderer was. Meanwhile, the police also arrived. Nick told them that the first person who had been killed was Malcolm, and everyone had thought that his son Toby was the one who killed him. But then Toby was also murdered, so he could not have been the killer. Then they said that Sergei had told them that Colonel Ulenga might be the one behind the murder. But when the bodyguard was killed, they looked out the window and saw Colonel Ulenga brushing his teeth inside the room, which meant he was not Sergei's murderer. Nick told them that, according to French law, after the father's death, his property would be divided equally among all his children, including illegitimate ones. So, after the deaths of Susie and Toby, there must have been someone who could benefit from Malcolm's death. Malcolm had only 2 children. One with Madeline, and one was Toby. Then Nicholas told them that he had asked a friend in New York to find the death certificate of Madeline and her child. But his friend was unable to find the death certificate of Madeline's son, which meant he was alive. Hearing this, the colonel told Nick that Malcolm had once told him he always wanted a son to carry on his lineage, but his son was declared dead after birth. Upon hearing this, Nick understood and said Malcolm might have had a daughter instead of a son, and he refused to accept her. Then Nick looked at Grace and asked her whether her second name was Butler. The detective said that the French translation of Butler is Le Boutillier, which was the surname of Malcolm's last lover, Madeline. So Nick said that Grace was the child of Malcolm and Madeline, and that she was trying to get all his money along with vengeance. Grace, in her defense, said that she was not in the room when the murder happened. So Nick told her that she might have gone outside to turn off the lights so that Toby could kill Malcolm, because according to French law, all the property would be divided equally among them, but she wanted it all for herself. So she also killed Toby. Then, when he and Audrey tried asking questions to prove themselves innocent, she also tried to kill them. But instead of them, she accidentally killed Sergei in the hotel room. Nick told her that she also fired a gun at them in the market and in the library, but accidentally killed Susie. Nick told her that she killed Charles because Charles loved Susie instead of her. Hearing that, the detective told them to provide at least some evidence so that they would be able to arrest Grace. Nick told the detective to do some work because he was the detective, not them, and therefore he should find the evidence. When Grace was trying to leave, Audrey looked at the big hat Grace was wearing and told her to remove it, saying that when the masked men attacked them in the market, Nick threw a plate at the masked man, which caused his mask to break, and therefore he might have an injury or a scar on his head. So the detective moved forward and removed the hat. Everyone was shocked to see the scar on Grace's head. Grace quickly took out her gun and pointed it at them. Carlos tried to stop her, but she slapped him, and he fell down. Then she grabbed Audrey and threatened the others that if they came close, she would kill Audrey. Nick quickly grabbed the colonel's gun and shot Grace in the shoulder, which caused her to fall down, and in this way, Nick saved his wife. The police arrested Grace. Audrey thanked Carlos for trying to stop Grace, saying that it was so brave of him. He said welcome in Spanish and left. Vikram asked Audrey and Nick that according to them, if Grace was the murderer, then who was the one who killed Sergei? Because, at that time, Grace was with him. Hearing that, Audrey and Nick began to think about it and realized how Carlos was able to quickly understand English and respond, although he claimed that he only knew Spanish. This made them realize that Carlos was also involved with Grace in the murder. He was the one who killed Sergei, and in the market, when Nick and Carlos were chasing the masked man, Carlos stepped in front of Nick and caused him to fall to the ground, helping the masked man escape. He was also involved in the murder of Charles. Hearing their discussion, the detective quickly rushed out to arrest Carlos, but Carlos grabbed him by the neck and pointed his gun at his head, telling others that Malcolm was the one who destroyed his family, and therefore he killed Malcolm's family. With that, he dragged the detective along with him into the police car and began to flee. Nicholas and Audrey also followed him in the red car. Audrey was driving the car with her eyes closed. She hit their car into the back of Carlos's car. Carlos's car lost balance and hit a wall. Carlos came out quickly and pointed his gun at them, but suddenly a tour bus came speeding toward him. After the case was closed, the detective thanked Audrey and Nick for their help in solving the case and told Nick that he would make a request for Nick's recruitment into the detective agency. The movie ends with Audrey and Nick sitting on a train across a table, enjoying the beautiful view outside the window.